Hey guys, thanks for checking out another HatchetCast episode. And today we're going to be talking about the InfiTac FMP13, or the Thermal Pistol Sights Fast Mini. Really interesting piece of equipment. The big thing I want to kind of go over is practicality versus actual usage with this capability. Is it more of a gimmick, or does it actually serve a purpose that makes you more effective as a prepared citizen? Before we get started, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Also, if you have one of these things, please comment on this video. I want to know your experiences. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that you've had in terms of your experience with the FMP13. Because I am genuinely curious to see what people think. And obviously, there's some other companies that are coming out with their own version of this, so we'll see how things go. But guys, before we get started, I want to talk about a quick sponsor of the channel, and that is Wetworks. Now, Wetworks is a small company out of Texas. It's owned by a husband and wife, and they make amazing nylon gear for the prepared citizen and the armed professional. They sell plate carriers, chest rigs, concealment options like helmet scrim and their Wraith ghillie hood. They also have things like the summer combat hoodie, which is one of my favorites, but they have all different types of nylon gear. They make amazing high quality stuff, and they want to make sure that it's available for you, the prepared citizen. So make sure you use the discount code in the description of this video or at the ticker on the bottom of the screen to save some money on your next purchase. Special thanks to Wetworks for sponsoring this episode. All right guys, so real quick, I'm gonna do a down and dirty rundown on this thing, my experiences with it, where I really see it being applicable. And so I'll start off with the specs, and then I'll talk about some experiences that I had with this thing and where I think it could be best used to actually make you effective as an asset. So we'll finish that off obviously with an encouraging word, but also kind of a stark warning. We are going into some really dark times, I believe. I think everybody can feel it. And so I want to kind of share some opinions that I have on that, about a couple of sources that I have that kind of shared some information with me that really emphasize the point that we need to make sure that we're ready, spiritually, mentally, physically, equipment-wise, preps for our family, etc. So, all right, jumping right into it, guys. Everybody's gonna ask about this right off the bat. So what is the actual price of this thing? The MSRP on this is $699. Now, full disclaimer, InfiTac did send me this for review. Wanted to go ahead and throw that out there and mention that. So this was sent to me. They did send me the mounts. They sent me the optic to be able to check out and give you guys my opinion to see, you know, would I run this? All right, moving on. As far as it's a compact thermal scope with a resolution of 256 by 192. It has a 60 hertz refresh rate, including a 13mm f1.0 lens. It has a 1.4 inch screen with a 360 by 300 display. It is waterproof. That is pretty interesting. And it can also withstand 1200 G of recoil. I don't know what the 1200 G is. I did run actually about 200 rounds on this thing. So I had Ben from Wiseman Company run some initial shots on this with a pistol, and then later on I ended up using more ammo to be able to just check the durability. Originally I had a plan for 1,000 rounds. However, because of what I'm about to say later, I was like, it's kind of pointless to be able to run that. I'm sure it's durable enough. It was fine on 200 rounds, but most of the time it's probably gonna live on the rifle. I'll talk about that. So I just did a 200 round run on this, and everything's fine. None of the electronics shook loose or anything like that. It is lightweight. It's only 4 ounces. It's equipped with a CR2 battery, which can last up to 5 hours of operation. It is also a standard RMR footprint so that it can be used for your pistol mounting needs. Now, as far as the other features, it does have a touch screen. It has 2 buttons. You push the up button to turn it on, and it has a multi-reticle system. So it has a 6 MOA dot, a 6 MOA dot, and a 65 MOA circle, a 6 MOA dot, and a 130 MOA circle. It does have auto brightness. So those are the down and dirty specs. Real quick, some of the additional accessories that you can get for this. It does have rifle mounts, so Picatinny rail, 30mm ring, 45-degree offset, and an aim point acro mount. And for the additional pistol footprints, it has the RMSC, DPP, and MOS footprint, so that way you can make sure that you have that ready to mount on whatever you want to put it on. Those do come separately, so you got to make sure that you get those mounts whenever you're looking to buy this thermal. Now, application. I'm not gonna lie, thermals lately have just been frustrating me. It's one of those things where a lot of thermal companies are putting out these supercomputer things where you're paying for all of these additional features. 90% of it you don't need, like literally 90% you don't need, or at least on a practical scale. Now, if you're a plinker or you're just a hobby guy and you're just going out for fun, or you go hog hunting all the time, and these are some features that you need. And I do hog hunting. I live here in Florida, and there's a lot of features on thermals that you don't need, but you're going to pay for it, right? You're going to pay thousands of dollars for something that you didn't ask for. So, kind of right off the bat, this thermal is one of the most simple thermals I've ever used. It was very, very easy to use. It literally only has 2 buttons, and also it has a touch screen. So you can zoom in, zoom out. As far as the zoom, it only goes from 1/2x to 1x. Now, I did shoot with Dion over at Element Training Complex in Holt, Florida. We did run it and actually see how far we could stretch this thing. And I'll actually go ahead and cut to that video now. So we zeroed this thermal last night. Dion is adjusting, so zooming in. We're seeing if we're able to spot targets. What distance are you aiming at right now?
It's like 125.
So 125. There you go. You able to spot it pretty easily? I mean,
it's kind of hard, not gonna lie, but let's jump out to...
And that's not a limitation of the optic, it's just the fact that the steel's not hot enough.
Yeah, here's 300.
Impact, 300.
That was last bullet.
Were you able to pick it up pretty decently?
Yeah, I mean, I can. If you know what you're looking at,
yeah,
you definitely can. But, and like I said, the plates haven't really got an opportunity to get hot yet. What I would be more curious is like later in the day when we start doing, like having someone walk down range and see what an actual like human heat signature looks like, not like some steel plates that's been trying to warm up in the sun. But I can definitely see it on the screen against the berm back there, and I was able to get a hit on it like pretty easily. But yeah, I would like to see
what do you
better
think,
heat signature.
What do you think? So when you zero the dot, talk us through what's kind of just an odd feature when you zero the dot on that screen.
Okay, so when you go into the zero setting, you can shoot your round or whatever, and if you see your splash, when you go to adjust your zero, as you're moving your reticle over, you'll see a little red box of where you were originally, like your original point of aim was. So it's almost like a one-shot zero type deal. If you see your impact or whatever, you can shoot and then continue to hold where you were, or actually you can move the reticle to where the dot was, and as long as that red square is over your original point of aim, then we did it in 2 groups.
Yeah.
Shot, made an adjustment, shot, and it was good.
And it's super tight groups. We're running Bone Frog ammunition, the 77 grain OTMs.
Yeah, it was shooting super tight groups.
But it's interesting is that the dot is not centered in the screen, so it's not adjusting the screen to allow the dot to be in the center. So the dot is at like the bottom left, like if you're looking at center of the screen, it's like at the bottom left corner.
Yeah, so one thing that's kind of cool that I just realized is like if you're stuck in here trying to figure out like where you're aiming at, there's a little notch right here at the top.
Yeah, like
I didn't realize that. So yeah, like a little peep sight. So you can just put your target in there and then drop into the screen, and you're going to be pretty close. Is there more Bone Frog ammo?
Yeah, we'll load up some more. And also,
I can see that 400-yard plate pretty well, and the 500. So as these plates are heating up, like they're becoming more and more visible. Oh, also, I think from last night, we might not have adjusted the brightness setting.
And Dion is not weird. He's shooting a left-handed person's gun as a righty, so that's why it's all cattywampus looking. But, all right, let's get up some more ammo.
Like to start on 3 and then go 4 or 5.
Okay. So 300 yards, then work all the way out to 5.
Yep.
And this is the OTM. It's Bone Frog 77 grain OTMs. What we're running this 14.5. This is the Barrel Hatchet and Aegis weapon system prototype rifle upper. More information to come out on that here soon. But let's see what Dion can do with this thing.
300.
Impact at 300.
All right, 400.
Impact at 400. Impact.
All right, 500.
Okay, so now we're on to 5. Impact. Impact 500. Now, how hard is that? I mean,
I think like if they made some type of little like either
shade?
the screen needs to be able to go brighter during the day because I'm having to like to be able to like really see the picture or make it out, and I adjusted like the contrast and everything to get like the best I could, but I'm still having to kind of like shield the screen to really kind of pick up. But once I do, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like once you see it, you can shoot it.
Yeah.
I'm just having a hard time seeing it, and it could be a mix of like the plates just aren't hot. It could be a mix of the screen. But I do wish the screen got a little bit more like
Brighter.
Yeah.
So what? Maybe if they had like a 3D printed hood accessory.
Yeah,
something?
like a sunshade
Yeah.
type deal, because you are looking at a digital screen, almost like when you look at like the digital night vision stuff. They have that eye cup.
Yeah.
I think that might be something like that might be kind of needed, mixed in with a slightly brighter screen.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would like to see higher than one-time magnification.
So yeah, zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, like if they can get away with doing a little bit more magnification, that'd be cool too, because we're shooting out to 500 on one time. And maybe higher magnification might solve some of the other issues of like the target being kind of hard to see.
Yeah. So I mean, you got a small screen, and then also you have a small, it's further out. So that's something also that having it on a rifle is
Have you seen like some dudes that'll run their offset dot back here?
Yeah.
I wonder like maybe with this turn how that would play out. If it would make it a little bit more user friendly, with the screen being closer to you back here at the 45, closer to your face than far away.
The only issue is we'd have to move because there's this knob, so hitting your charging handle would be difficult. So you'd have an object here and an object here in front of your charging handle if we had the scope where it's at right now. So you'd have to bump the scope up, remove the rear sight, and then see if it could be mounted. But yeah.
And then using that little peep sight helped like jump from berm to berm a little bit easier than trying to just like find everything being sucked into the screen. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, that kind of blew my expectations because the screen was so small. I was genuinely curious if it was going to have the capability to do that, to be able to pick up signatures and allow you to make hits, especially with a 6 MOA dot out that distance. Now, as far as the pistol mounted portion, let's go ahead and get this portion out of the way. And this is just my opinion, okay? So don't take it as gospel. Go seek other people's opinions as well before you purchase something. But before you purchase anything, don't just rely on my opinion. Please go do your research and check out what other people are saying as well. As far as this being on a pistol, now it does say it is a pistol thermal optic. It is has that design in mind to be able to be mounted on a pistol. It has the different footprints, but sometimes just because a piece of equipment fits on a pistol doesn't mean that you should always do it.
So you can't see it with sunglasses?
No.
All right, so you got to have sunglasses on or clear lenses to be able to see the screen.
You have to have clear lenses, yeah, or yeah, nothing.
All right.
Oh golly! Let me see if I can see anything. Oh, I hate that.
Are you trying to shoot at the steel?
Yeah.
It's at the base. Just underneath bottom edge.
I am just staring at a tiny screen and I'm missing all this information.
Yeah. Give her another one.
Still locks back with all that weight. I can't.
I mean, look how big it is on the pistol. So the key is finding also an optic or a holster that would work with that. The only thing I could think of is if you had a suppressor and you had the T-Rex suppressor holster, but. So yeah, it's the details too is really nice, but it's such a small screen that you can't. It's hard to find the target on such a. I mean, you're looking at something the size of a flip phone screen, and then it's recoiling on a slide. So
yeah.
like,
and if you try to shoot both eyes open, the screen is at a different magnification than what your natural eye is. So it's like you can't do them both at the same time.
It's not like shooting occluded.
It's not like shooting occluded. You know, where people just put the tape over the front of the optic. It's not like that at all. You have to direct all your attention to the back of the little screen.
You ready? Right now, we're just going to see if it has any malfunctions or falls apart.
Continues to lock back.
In my opinion, especially if you've been running red dots, for the prepared citizen, for someone who's training. Now for hobbyists, maybe for some hunters, you do what you want to do in terms of, I think this might be a good thing to have on a pistol for you. Depends on your application. I'm going to leave it at that. However, if you're training for being a prepared citizen, if you're training for being an asset that wants to protect their family, that wants to protect their community, and in the way that we all talk about on this channel already, you have a limited amount of time on this planet. And that is time that you cannot buy back. You can't get it back. That's why I always preach, spend time with your family, spend time with your kids. You only get one shot, so don't waste time on things that are not going to enhance your capabilities, right? For those who shoot red dots on pistols, as you know, you have to be you have to be target focused to be able to make that red dot work. When you mount this thing on a pistol, you cannot overlay the screen onto your target or the reticle that's on the screen onto your target. You physically have to look at the back of the screen, almost like you're looking at your watch, while you're engaging the target. Now, mind you, the target could be, 7 yards away, but it's going to appear smaller than it actually is because you're on a smaller screen, and then you have to zoom in to be able to make that target a little bit bigger. Otherwise, it's going to be even smaller on the screen. And then when you get that gun lined up, first off, you're trying to align a pistol by looking at the back of the screen. And then when you make the shot, that screen is moving all over the place. So then you have to let it settle, look at the back of the screen, making sure that you're not fixated on the target, and then try to make another shot. So in terms of accurate fire with a pistol at a reasonable engagement rate, I think it's very impractical. And that is, like I said, just my opinion. If you are working on shooting red dots and you're trying to already spend a lot of time being target fixated, because that might be a habit that you're trying to build, if you try shooting this with a pistol, you're going to be reverting that training. Like, you're going to be going backwards, because now you're fixating back on the gun, which, for those who know, when you're trying to shoot red dots, it's difficult. It takes time to be able to be fixated on the target, because your eye naturally wants to look at that dot and focus on the dot or focus on the pistol in that last tenth of a second. So you're kind of reverting back to that tendency and that habit. And so that takes time, and it's going to take more time to be able to train to shoot with something like this on a pistol, which it goes back to, what are you going to do with your time? You only have 24 hours in a day. You only have a certain amount of time on the earth. What do you want to spend your time shooting? Now that I got that out the way, like I said, I don't think it really is something that I would use on a pistol. In fact, I'll tell you right now, I would not use it on a pistol.
If you shoot, let's just say for example, where you're going to have it as a wet works type gun, right? And you're gonna put a suppressor on that pistol. Well, that suppressor is going to emit a lot of heat, and that heat is going to distort your image because your thermal sensor's right by that suppressor. So the more you shoot on a pistol, the more that's gonna have that distortion. Will it happen on a rifle? Yes, it will. Not as bad though, and also if you add a rifle cover, it's gonna help reduce some of that. So now that I got that out the way, that's just my opinion about it being mounted on a pistol. I don't think there's a realistic application for people who are using it in a preparedness role. If you're using it maybe for hunting, where you're just doing one shot, if you're doing it just as a hobby, just to be able to have something cool, then yeah, mount it on a pistol all day. But if you're really trying to focus on your training and build good habits, like I said, I would not put it on a pistol. All right, so beat that horse to death. I think we're moved past that. Now here's the good stuff. When it comes to this piece of equipment, it absolutely increases your capability when it's mounted on a rifle. I have this currently on a 45-degree offset, and what's really nice about having it on a 45-degree offset, one, I get to keep my top dot, which I use for passive aiming, which I use for finding my targets when I'm looking at something downrange, and then I can drop into my scope, going through my shooter's checklist to be able to make that distance engagement. And I can just roll my head over and see if there's any thermal signatures inside of my general area that I'm observing, right? So that is a really cool feature that this can provide you. Also, like you saw that we did at Element with Dion, you can make hits. If you have to run this and you don't have a clip-on thermal or you don't have a night vision optic that's a clip-on, which are gonna be thousands and thousands of dollars, you can run this out to 320 and make hits. Now, the biggest thing you have to think about is, can you PID? All right, that's a whole nother story. But if you have someone else that has that capability where they are talking you onto a target because they have a handheld thermal and they can PID and they do give you a distance, then you're able to use this in a pinch, like I said, in a pinch, to be able to make that engagement. The biggest area where I think this shines is going to be situational awareness. It is a great tool for scanning. It's a great tool for picking up targets, and then you can roll into your optic to be able to make that engagement. It is a very, very crisp image, in my opinion, and it's a very small footprint. Like, it's not that much of a footprint on the rifle. Is that a little bit of weight? Sure, only about 4 ounces worth, not including the mount. But if I was gonna put it on something like here, I've got the Barrel Hatchet prototype rifle. This is gonna be the Mod H. But, you know, for an SPR or GPR type setup, having this on the side, or maybe even if you're gonna run a 300 blackout gun and you have it at a 45, it makes a lot of sense, right? Similar to the Hollow Sun thermal, where it's like a red dot with a thermal overlay. I think this has a little bit more engagement distance capability than that. Now, one of the other interesting things about this is that you can also, if you're gonna have it rifle mounted, you can, there's a USB-C port on here. You can put an additional battery on there. It's I think it's gonna be kind of a pain with an additional battery, like a backup battery on your gun. So what I would do is just conserve your battery life, right? Carry a couple extra batteries in your pouch, on your chest rig or your plate carrier, and then just whenever you need it, turn it on. You find out, hey, someone's saying I see something over there. All right, let me get the thermal on, go over there and scan. Okay, I do see something. I need to PID it. Let me go ahead and drop into my scope. If I have to, make the shot, or hey, you know, that's not a threat. So the other thing is I also used it already doing some hunting. And as far as walking around, like, I heard some noise, so I turned that thing on and put it in that general direction, and I was able to see it 10 yards away. You know, it's in the jungle brush of Florida. And so being able to pick that up was really cool, and it stands out like a sore thumb. Like, it's a very crisp image. The one thing that I would say about this is that they do say do not keep it, you know, don't expose it to direct sunlight. So what I did, you know, just taught a distance carbine class here at Bone Valley Industries, and that's where we're at right now, here in Mulberry, Florida. It's a brand new range facility, membership-based facility. So awesome place. You guys gotta go check it out. Great community here. But when I was teaching a class over this past weekend, I took tape and I covered up the sensor. So if you want to kind of keep it out of the sunlight, have a little piece of tape on this. What would be really cool is if you could get like a shroud or a 3D printed shroud to be able to kind of cover that, because the other thing that we saw is that when you have this thing on at night, there's no like eye cup like you see on a traditional thermal. It'll have an eye cup, so that way it prevents a lot of that glow from escaping. The brightness on this was bright enough that when we were inside the Connex at Element Training Complex shooting, you could literally see the silhouette of the shooter's head against the backsplash of the wall. So it is very bright. I would not use it if you know that your adversary has night vision, because it's going to stand out just as much as a thermal signature would stand out under thermal. It is fairly bright. So daytime ops, dusk and dawn, or a great way to do it is guys were just taking this and they were cupping their hands over it to be able to see a little bit more of that image a little bit more clearly. But all the different settings, you can change the color palettes, you can do all that type of stuff on there with the touchscreen. The one thing that I know Dion was saying is he wished that it did have a little bit higher zoom, but it's, you can't have everything. That's a very small package. Maybe there's some technology down the road where it allows for more zoom capability. The other thing is it does not record. So if you're looking at using it for recording stuff, it doesn't record, but also it's a frickin' tiny thermal. It's super small. So I know that we want to have as many features as humanly possible, but sometimes it's a good thing. I love the fact that it's a very simple piece of equipment to use, and that it has such a small footprint. So that way I can mount it with other stuff on my rifle. So now I don't have to worry about clipping something on. Do you get a little bit more out of a clip-on that's really high cost? Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of your thermals out there, this is $699 for a thermal capability versus I'm gonna spend $5,000 on an iRay or something like that. And that doesn't include the mount and all the other things. And you have to remove your laser or have your laser somewhere else. So it starts to make a lot of sense running something like this, especially if I'm going to use some scanning and then have someone else run primary bigger thermal or a dedicated thermal scope that's a lot bigger, that has more capabilities, and they have the understanding to be able to use because of all the flipping bells and whistles that come with all these things these days. Now, if you did 3D print some form of hood that would go over this to kind of block some of that light, it's going to make it really difficult to be able to access that touchscreen. So touchscreen is great because it makes it very simple in terms of the operation. It lessens the amount of buttons you got to use, which honestly I love. Usually with a lot of thermals out there, you have to hold the button for 5 seconds and it opens this menu, and you hold this button for 2 seconds and it opens that menu, and then you do the up and down, and it's just insane. It's like sometimes the thermal thing just makes me mad in general. But having a touchscreen, swiping all day, very, very easy, very, very fast. So if you had a 3D printed shroud, it would make that really difficult, right? Unless you had a setting and you're just gonna keep it at that, then maybe putting a shroud over there would be fine. But just like I said, protect that sensor. If you're not gonna be using it, maybe put some thermal or some tape over it. That would be cool, is if actually there was like a flap, like a 3D printed flap that would actually cover this, kind of like your scope caps, but it would just cover the sensor, and then when you need it, you lift it up. I don't know, throwing that out there for anybody that's thinking about doing that, let me know. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the refresh rate. Everybody talks about the refresh rate. I don't think I've ever seen this thing refresh. Like, it happens so fast. If it happens, I think it has to happen, but it happens so fast, I've never seen it refresh, like freeze and refresh. I haven't seen it happen. It's kind of wild. Every thermal that I've ever run has a refresh rate that you can actually see it pause and then it starts back up again and the image goes back to where it's moving around. This, I didn't see it. So it happens quick enough where you can't pick it up, or it's just a very small, short amount of time, so that way it's negligible. You can barely even notice it's happening. So as far as the InfiTac thermal and the technology, I think it's absolutely the future. This is the future where thermals are gonna go. They're gonna get smaller and smaller and smaller, and they're more prevalent. And I think they're gonna go down in price in general as thermals as a category. The prices, as technology increases, the prices hopefully do go down because they're gonna figure out more efficient ways, more efficient materials to be able to manufacture these things. Which goes into that one thing. It's like, it's a much more difficult task to try to hide from these thermals. Now, one thing I will throw out, when we were up at Element, we did do this thing at dusk. So right when the sun was setting, and there is a lot of thermal overlay drift, like the thermal drift where like you kind of blend in. And if I wasn't moving, it was really hard to pick me up. So Dion was, you know, scanning, and he's like, dude, when you're moving, I can pick you up, but when you stand still, you just kind of blend in because it's a weird thing. Dusk and dawn, it's with those weird things where the temperature on different things in your environment kind of blend, and it's hard to pick up thermal signatures. So that's not a fault of the optic, it's just a natural occurrence that happens if you're running thermal. But if you're looking at getting a thermal capability, I really highly recommend this. I really do. It has kind of blown my expectations. Like I said in the beginning, I wouldn't recommend it on a pistol, but for a rifle, it adds a level of capability that I think would make you much more
All right, we're gonna go for 500.
aware of what's going on in your surroundings. It's going to increase your situational awareness. If you have to take the shot, you can. The price point is very, very, very reasonable to have a thermal capability, you know, without spending thousands and thousands of dollars. So take a look at it. One of the students that was in the distance carving class had it actually top mounted. He's been loving it. I like it at a 45, so that way I have, you know, this optic to be able to use for what I already told you guys about, for that passive aiming and also just fast acquisition. But I mean, hey, you know, now if let's just say everything catastrophically breaks and I have a thermal, at least I have the capability to use it as a backup if I needed to. So like I said, multi-role piece of equipment, absolutely love it on a rifle. And I would highly recommend it. And in fact, I'm gonna keep it on this rifle as this setup, just because I think it's super capable. So hopefully you guys were able to find that helpful for your research. If you're looking at getting into a thermal, if you're looking at the FMP13 specifically, check it out. I think it's a really amazing piece of equipment. I think that it also really adds to your capability and enhances you. But with that being said, you know, kind of going into the message portion of this video, I was kind of shocked at a source that I was talking to over the weekend that was talking about a lot of the vulnerabilities that we have in our infrastructure right now. And what that kind of did for me is it just kind of reinforced the fact that we need to make sure that we're ready. I mean, we have never been so politically divided before. We have never been so polarized. We have never been in such an economic crisis. All of these different things, right? You know, the gap between the rich and the poor is widening. Gold is breaking records right now in terms of the cost per ounce. And so we're seeing all of these dominoes beginning to stack up, ready to fall. And it's very easy to be complacent and stick your head in the hole in the sand and just pretend like nothing's happening. Don't do that. The other end of the spectrum is being so scared that you're living in your bunker eating MREs, right? So the biggest thing, like I said before, is time. Spend time enhancing your capabilities. Use the time that we have now, the good times that we're in, to be able to, which these are the good old days. I'm telling you right now, these are the good old days. When we go into the future, you're gonna look back at this time and be like, man, it was so nice when I could get this and I could get that. Stock up on equipment, stock up on food, stock up on the preps that you need to be able to sustain yourself. And then also, if you're a part of a community or go be a part of a community, if things happen, then you have capabilities that you can bring to the table and say, hey, here's what I'm bringing, and this is what I can do to make the group more effective at surviving and helping rebuild society. But everybody knows it. We're all on the brink of war. We are all globally on the brink of collapse. There's never been so many countries that have just been frustrated with the West in general, and we're seeing the sides forming right in front of our eyes. And so it would be foolish to think that nothing's gonna happen. I think something is gonna happen. The key is, what are we going to do to make sure that we're prepared for when that thing does happen? You know, in the past, I've talked about day X. Day X being if everything happened on the same day, grid goes down, war, you know, terror strikes across the nation, active shooters, you know, Russia or our adversaries, you know, nuke this city and nuke that city? What if all of a sudden we have a situation where the stock market and the economy collapses, but it all happens on the same day? It would be absolutely catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. And also, those cell phones are probably not going to work. So making sure you have radios, making sure that you're spun up on how to use that stuff so that way you can communicate with your family. Just coming up with a plan. And, my hope and my desire is that I'm wrong, and that, we get another 100 years of prosperity, and hey, it's just a little bit of a hard time right now. But I know that it's better to plan, and it's better to be prepared and nothing happen than something happen and you are completely caught with your pants down. On the final note of what I'm trying to say is you have to have something that you're living for. And I talked about this in the last video. You have to be living for a purpose. God did not call you to survive on the earth and just get through life, right? Even right now, God has called you to thrive because you're living for a mission set that He designed you for. And for those who have their hope in material things, I talk about all the preps so that way you can be an asset to other people and help other people and then provide them the message of hope. For all my Christian warriors out there, that is how you're able to preach the gospel and to be able to get an in on talking about the hope that's in Jesus Christ if we have a total collapse. Right now, you can have the ability to talk about the amazing hope that the Lord brings to us and that freedom that we have in Him by finding common ground and finding people that you can train with in your community. These are ways that you can use your resources that God gives you to be able to start the conversation, right? And so there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be without hope because when things do happen and they lose their jobs and they lose the material things or they lose the society that they lived in and the country that they lived in, if their hope is wrapped up in that, or if your hope is wrapped up in that, that's a terrible way to go because now that hope is removed from you. It's been ripped away from you. And so you have to have a hope in something that is outside of the material things that the world can provide. And in 1 John chapter 2, verse 15, he says these words of wisdom: "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever." I'm telling you right now, God designed you for a purpose. Like I said in the last episode, He designed you for a very specific task and purpose, and it's going to be the most fulfilling thing that gives you the identity in Him that is going to bring you happiness and joy no matter what happens in society, no matter what happens next year or the year after that. And like I said, dark times are coming, and so our resolve is going to have to be very, very strong. And it cannot be in just our skills. It cannot be in just our preps and our resources. Those are all tools. Those are all things to be able to present hope, which is outside of this world, in the living God, in the Savior, Jesus Christ, who came and died for you and designed you with a special purpose, so that way you can pass that hope on along to people who are hopeless, that do have their hopes in the world, and now everything is gone. And so when you have that hope in the Lord, no matter what happens, you are secure. And not only secure, but you will be rewarded for passing on that hope. God gave 2 commandments that pretty much wrap up the entire Bible. Just like the 4 firearm fundamental safety rules, don't treat every gun as if it's loaded. The other rules just kind of fall into place, and it's a more descriptive way of what you should do if you're already following rule number 1. But the 2 commandments God gave us: love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. You follow those 2 rules, everything else falls into place. Every other law falls into place, right? If you love your Lord your God and love your neighbor, those are the 2 things that will give you the ability to pass on the word and to pass on the hope and the salvation that God gives us. And also you will find fulfillment in your life. And so, like I said, we are going into dark times. I'm telling you right now, for those, my fellow believers, we know the ending of the story. We really do in Revelation. And so make sure that when you're going out and you're training, Make sure that you build those relationships. Find ways to love your neighbor. Find ways to provide and be there for other people. Being an actual asset to your community, and also, most importantly, to your family. Spend that quality time with your family. You only get one shot. And this is that's a piece of advice that I'm, trying to work on myself. Spend that time with your family. Your family is your first ministry. They are the first ones that you should be dumping that love into, dumping that hope into that God brings, raising them up, and being the leader of your household, where you are protecting them, you're educating them, you're preparing them for anything that comes in life, right? And showcasing how God's hope and salvation is going to provide everything that you need, no matter what the times are. No matter what. He will never let you starve. He will never let you go hungry, right? And like I said, for those who are, like I was, a closet Christian, man, once things start getting hard, God is not just insurance. God is not just, something I pray for so that way I can get this job or get this thing or get this nice car. It's a relationship, man. He's not a genie in a bottle. He wants that relationship with you. Just like John says, do not love the world, love me. And that way, everything that's in the world that's given to you is a tool to be able to further the kingdom and spread hope, to love your fellow man, and to be an asset to people in your community. So guys, hopefully you got something out of that video. If you're going through a hard time or you need a prayer request, send me an email at team@barrelhatchet.com or comment at the bottom of this video. Train to be the eternal asset, guys. I truly do mean that. Train to be an eternal asset. My name is Eric, and I'll see you on the next one.